Hi, and welcome to another edition of PTP's Infinite Innovation Interview Series. I'm Gary Durheim. Today we're going to be talking to PTP's Director of Managed Services, Rick Pitcairn, on the subject of the importance of resource tagging in AWS for management and cost optimization. Welcome, Rick.
Thanks, Gary. It's great to be here.
So let's start with this. So we know that the ease of deployment of resources in the cloud and the ability to scale fast is significant reasons that our customers are moving to the cloud, but that this agility also can present some complexity in terms of management and cost optimization. Is there functionality inside AWS that helps combat some of these challenges?
So you mentioned the agility of the cloud, and I think that's a key point, as the cloud enables provisioning to move at a much faster pace. Not to mention, you have application and infrastructure teams who are tasked to spin up resources, test QA workloads, and deploy them into production very quickly, which can in some cases create added complexity as each of these teams are responsible for different pieces of the infrastructure and can organize, manage, spin up resources, and deploy them into production how they see fit. So what you end up with is a sprawling effect, which becomes almost impossible to manage without the proper governance, focus, and planning ahead of time. So to answer your question, yes, there is built-in functionality within AWS to address some of these challenges. What AWS allows administrators to do is assign metadata in the form of a tag to resources, which in turn will make it much easier to organize, manage, secure, and support. The tag is basically a label containing a user-defined key and a value. When we're working with our customers, what we would recommend is to develop a sound tagging strategy ahead of time and then use policies to enforce.
So it seems similar to the importance of resource naming conventions for traditional infrastructure environments. Is that correct?
I would say it's definitely important to have a tagging strategy and well-defined naming standards within a cloud infrastructure. The importance on naming standards has not changed just because my resources are located in the cloud. It is still critical to overall IT function and resource-to-resource communication. I think I would look at tagging resources as a complement maybe to naming standards, where they act as an overlay in order to better perform automation functions, manage resources, or filter resources within the AWS console.
Are there any particular use cases for tags?
Yeah, I would say there are several important use cases that would be considered best practice to implement. One of the main use cases that we see is around cost allocation. Our customers are leveraging this use case on a daily basis and as part of their overall tagging strategy. I think what we would recommend is to create a tag as part of your tagging policy and associate it to a cost center or business unit. What this will allow is filtering to take place when using the built-in AWS cost tools or other tools for cost optimization to be able to track the correct team who's responsible for the charges and bill back to that specific business unit or bill back against a project. Another use case we see is around automation. We have customers who will create a tag for dev resources that do not need to be up all the time in consuming spend. So they'll use this tag in scripts to turn up, turn down resources as needed. And I think two other areas where I think it could be combined is for access control and security management. Tags can be used to limit access permissions throughout the infrastructure, and we can also assign tags to resources based on their different security levels or requirements, and then utilize automation tasks to run against those resources to ensure compliance and those resources have the proper access controls in place. Lastly, as a managed service provider, we utilize tags on a daily basis for operational support and mapping to CIs within our ITSM platform, so we can direct escalations to the responsible IT teams and for overall troubleshooting.
What about any best practices that should be considered?
There are definitely some best practices that should be considered. I think the first step is to develop a solid understanding and overall awareness of tags. And then as that knowledge is gained, you can begin to lay out the structure in order to develop and implement. I would recommend assigning an individual or team, depending on the size of the organization, who will take responsibility and own the overall tagging strategy. Once established, the individual owner or team can involve key parties such as finance, information security, and application owners, etc., and work with those teams to develop, govern, and implement the tagging strategy. If not utilizing tagging today, start with smaller portions of the infrastructure to implement and test. Tagging is flexible, so if specific tags are implemented and then need to be changed or updated, they can be. Once the standards are established, set tagging policies to enforce and maintain consistency throughout the organization. Tags are case sensitive, so be careful, as we have seen that cause confusion when implementing.
Great information and super helpful. So if I'm a customer and want to develop a tagging strategy, what do you recommend?
So I would recommend go out to AWS and review their white paper on tagging and best practices. They did a really nice job putting this document together, and it'll help provide foundational knowledge on the different use cases. It covers best practices and how to go about identifying tagging requirements, and also walks you through the best approach for developing and implementing a tagging strategy for your cloud infrastructure. Secondly, you can always reach out to PTP. Our engineers would be happy to meet with your teams to help identify requirements, determine the proper structure and ownership for managing tagging policies, and we can also work with your teams to implement those policies within your AWS environment.
Great information. Thanks for your time today, Rick.
No problem. Thanks for having me.